saw a guy do this in a toothpaste ad once. Ta-da! Invisible shield, you know.
Hello there! Playing Karma here with a new episode of RBY Bytes. Arcanine is some of the most interesting lore in Pokemon as a franchise. Contrary to what people say, it was deemed a true blue legendary Pokemon in official sources. An old book simply called Pokedex, written and published by Game Freak itself, categorizes Arcanine, the Dragonite line, the Bird Trio, and the Mew Duo together as legendaries. If you're curious, there's a Did You Know gaming video talking about the whole book at length after they translated it. Check it out! It seems that back then, the legendary title was more so there to designate extremely rare Pokemon. Arcanine is certainly widespread compared to other Pokemon, but its old Pokedex entries claimed it was revered in China, so while it's common in Kanto, it's legendary elsewhere, across the pond. Perhaps this explains why the legendary birds are legendary, despite numerous forms of media showing that they aren't. Regardless, we'll probably never know. This Arcanine lore, including its Chinese roots, have most definitely been retconned by now, and I don't blame Game Freak for it. In spite of being so pushed, RBY Arcanine is awful. When you look at those stats, anyone will be quick to think that Arcanine is amazing. Hell, in the extremely early Western metagame, people were using it to densely Jinx before it could use Lovely Kiss. This niche was eclipsed by Ninetales early on, which has a better special stat for this purpose, before most players abandoned this niche entirely, since both Pokemon couldn't actually OHKO Jinx. So you dent it, but it still gets Sleep Off anyway. What's the point? Now, when you turn to Arcanine's moves, oh my god, what were they thinking? The only usable attacks are Fire Blast, Body Slam, Hyper Beam, and Agility. Rest is a given, we'll catch that later, but whoa. Arcanine is just food for any rock type, and Rhydon, the Pokemon with the strongest Earthquake in the game, is one of the last Pokemon you want to let in for free. And Starmie! It's letting in Starmie! That's even worse! Plus, since it likes physical stab, that Snorlax level attack stat might as well be 70, because it's never seeing its full potential. In fact, Arcanine's Body Slam deals less than Clefable's. All Fire-types moves are special in this game, and the user's special of 80. See the problem yet? Adding insult to injury, Arcanine is one of two Fire-types hilariously left without Fire Spin. With Fire Spin, it could abuse Agility Spin like Moltres and Rapidash, and its better attack stat would boost Hyper Beam, sniping Chansey that little bit earlier. And guess what? Arcanine got it in Generation 2, so it technically can do this with a time capsule, which is banned in RBY standard play. This depressing dilemma is not uncommon in the Kanto region. Arcanine is, unfortunately, part of a long line of terrible RBY Fire-types. Even their unique draw, burns, can be a detriment to your game plan. You see, being frozen is permanent in RBY, so you'd hate to remove it from an enemy. But burn moves are the one way to remove it in Link battles, as it turns out. Thawing doesn't require triggering a burn, just a move that can. This is why Fire Spin doesn't thaw Pokemon. It is Fire-type, but it doesn't burn things. Even a status without this issue is unwieldy. You don't want to burn Pokemon like Chansey or Starmie, Pokemon that basically require paralysis, freezing, or sleep to bring down reliably. If you burn them, you can't land those statuses anymore. Instead, they can swap into your status moves at the cost of a measly 6% HP, blocking their usage. Burn is useful against Tauros and Rhydon, but if a Pokemon benefiting from a burn swaps in instead, it can be an annoying inconvenience. Want to avoid this risk? Too bad. All fire moves not named Fire Spin can burn. And that's not even getting into Fire Blast miss chance. You need to work around the burn rather than make it work for you. But there are clear ways to do this. Just don't play for freeze, or take out the frozen Pokemon as soon as possible. And yes, if a burn move that isn't Fire-type was an RBY, it would actually get rid of the freeze status. And it wouldn't burn Pokemon at the same time either for separate reasons. So if Scorching status is in the game, it could get rid of the freeze status, but it couldn't burn ground types like Rhydon. There are other downsides to Fire types, but they are less about the type itself, just baked into the design of every single one in the game. They either have extremely flawed stats and wide move pools, or amazing stats and less of a move pool, more of a move puddle. With the exception of exactly Charizard, they also don't have any counterplay to their bad type matchups, unlike, let's say, Water types or Blizzard for grass types. Like, it may not seem natural for them to have Thunderbolt, but the problem still remains regardless. Slap on a crummy special stat on all but Moltres and Ninetales, and you have this slew of really weird fire types running around NU and below. Let's put this into perspective, eh? Charizard is one of the best move pools in the game, but doesn't excel at either attacking stat. This move pool is so good that it often forgoes Fire Blast entirely. Hell, if it were a normal flying type, it may have actually been UU. It's arguably top 1 Nenu because of Sword stats, but it's not exactly impressive anywhere else because it relies on it so much. By the way, to the people who spam this Pokemon on the OU ladder, please stop, I beg you, your family is worried. Rapidash has amazing attack and speed, almost Tauros levels actually, but it lacks normal stat to make use of it. Instead, it has to use its fast Fire Spin and HE Special Fire Blast to do any meaningful damage. Also, without trade backs, it has no coverage. Ninetales has good special and speed, but has nothing else. Its coverage is minimal and has to rely on Fire Blast and Fire Spin, only this time it trains agility for Confuse Ray. Don't use Confuse Ray. Magmar has amazing coverage, but its stats are just mediocre all around, so it never actually manages to achieve anything. Psychic is nice for rock types, only if you can actually KO said rock type. This is also the only Pokemon to get an electric type move in GSC, go figure. Thunder Punch is really cool. Flareon literally has to use Tail Whip to find Leash overused. I wish I was joking, but there was an actual innovation with this from Enagami a few years ago. Essentially, if Flareon is paralyzed by a Thunder Wave from Paralyzed Chansey or Starmie, it can use Tail Whip to reapply their paralysis speed drop to become faster, and set up a Body Slam plus Hyper Beam KO at the same time. It sees almost no usage regardless, because using Flareon is self-sabotage, and paralysing Starmie is far more difficult with the way modern RBY games play out. Despite this, it's arguably the second best fire type to be using in overused, but that's not saying much. I think it was like D rank the last time I saw it? So if Fire Stab being actively harmful, a fire type needs to have something really good to be worth it. I have one singular example for you. Moltres, a Pokemon that had a major glow up in the community opinion as of late. Moltres succeeds in spite of its typing, its lack of ways to beat water types, and Fire Blast problems, through the sheer force of anger alone. This bird is angry. It's hard to describe Moltres' power with just words. It has the single strongest unboosted special attack in the game, a 125 special Fire Blast. While Articuno has higher accuracy and hits more Pokemon with Blizzard, numerically, Moltres is tied in power, and a burn could make it deal more damage. It can 2-hit KO Tauros, Exeggutor, and Cloyster, while even denting and burning Rhydon. Usually, Moltres will see action when the opposing team has been riddled with status and shipped to where it can KO them without much of a struggle. Because of this, while many fire types will fear landing a burn, Moltres tends to not care much. If they're already statused, they can't be burned, and if they are, Moltres may KO them next turn anyway. It's the god of cleanup. You don't reveal it until checkmate. And by then, its checks will have likely been slept or removed. It requires a ton of support and a Starmie removal service, but the payoff is comically good. Moltres also benefits from the combination of Agility and Fire Spin, also known as Agilaspin for short, which is a big feature that Articuno lacks. I should emphasize that Moltres doesn't always clean with this. Sometimes it's more consistent to just smash through your opponent with +2 speed and a Fire Blasting Dream, but if you don't have the KO ranges yet, you may need it. Think of it as insurance. In RBY, Fire Spin works very differently from modern generations. On hit, it deals small damage and prevents the target from moving for a few turns while the user continues the attack. The user can swap out while the victim can't move that turn, which makes it sort of like a modern pivot move. The target can switch out as well, but this forces Fire Spin to be used again, and if it lands, well, the whole thing is repeated. Wrap, Bind, and Clamp also work this way. Normally, the best counterplay to these moves is to swap in a faster Pokemon and force the Fire Spin user out by threat of paralysis. This is normally why the strategy is just a gimmick. Well, that's the absolutely terrible accuracy. It's not a bad move, but it's far from reliable. Sometimes you'll just miss and die. It's notable that Burn will still deal damage under Fire Spin, which can help Moltres chip Chansey and Starmie down in the event of untimely burn. It's just extremely anxiety-inducing the entire time. One miss and they paralyze and KO you, and then it's curtains. So anyway, with all this in mind, if your Pokemon is faster than the entire team and doesn't miss, Fire Spin can be repeated without any counterplay until its power points run out, or it misses. So, why not use Agility to outrun everything? Yep, if Moltres' speed is threatened, it can always RNG its way to victory. Just never do it if you know the game is locked down. In spite of everything, Moltres hasn't hit OU yet for a reason, even though some people argue that it is. It's criminally inconsistent. None of its main moves have high accuracy, so even with everything set up, it may just decide not to work that day, sort of like Victory Bell. It also requires a very precise game plan to work. If you want to specifically sweep with Moltres, you need to get Chansey and Starmie into Fire Blast plus Hyper Beam range, or ideally remove them for it to have a shot at winning. Just your luck, these Pokemon are extremely common and hard to wear down. With adequate support though, it's an amazing cleanup Pokemon. But even when you fully optimize the RBY Fire-type through Moltres, you still just fall short. Yes, Rapidash can also use Agilaspin, The problem is Rapidash doesn't have a big fuck off 125 special Fire Blast. And this is why, even if Arcanine had Fire Spin, it probably would not have succeeded. Both have better Hyper Beams, but this isn't what makes Moltres work. Sheer power does. Arcanine has had exactly one stint of genuine tiered usage in an RBY format, and that was during the extremely early days of Never Used. There, it would use Fire Blast, Body Slam, Hyper Beam and Rest, acting as a 7 defensive piece. It could also use Toxic sometimes, I guess, but I think that's kind of bad. Arcanine could hold off most fire types and somewhat dual Charizard while keeping Venusaur humble. However, as the metagame has shifted to a far more offensive one, especially after Venusaur left for the underused, Arcanine has continually struggled to find usage. Personally, I think an Agility Superset is alright, but it's a nightmare to build around, and it's probably more trouble than it's worth. Like, Moltres happens to be in the tier as well, so why not just use that instead? It can use the exact same sets as Arcanine does. So, where did Arcanine end up? D. And for the deranged people who play that tier, it's not even good enough for them. Why? Because it's outclassed by Rapidash, which does the exact same things that Arcanine wants to do, but with more speed. Omanyte happens to wall both of these Pokemon, so a decent chunk of players don't want to stack fire types either, so Arcanine isn't even a good auxiliary fire type. Ergo, if a ZU tier was made official, Arcanine would be there right now. And from what I can see on the viability rankings, it'll be one of the only fully evolved Pokemon in the tier, down there with Beedrill and Golbat. That's just depressing. I mean, Arcanine would be really, really good in the tier, and probably bannable actually, but yeah, that's the absolute state of Arcanine. So how would you fix this? How do you fix this thing? Well, I have a few ideas. Firstly, give it normal stab. Hitting as hard as Snorlax allows it to do more in spite of Fire Blast's drawbacks, not to mention the immunity to Body Slam paralysis. Leading into Fire Stab is just not what Arcanine needs. Moltres proves that even if you optimize that, you would only barely be hitting the OU-UU line. Therefore, it needs to use a second attacking type, ideally one for its strongest attack category, properly. The normal typing would make Arcanine one of the most punishing Body Slam switches possible, while also giving it a terrifyingly strong Hyper Beam. Secondly, give it Earthquake to damage Rhydon and Gengar. It'll still fail to KO them and take a chunk back, but this means that they don't come in for free. I think the lack of Earthquake was actually an accident, as Arcanine is one of the few Pokemon RBY to have Dig but not Earthquake. The only others are Ninetales and Primeape, and I think it makes sense for them because they have quite meek stages. Arcanine is very different. Outside of these two big points, you could probably take pity on Arcanine and give it Fire Spin. May as well. And that's really all you need. No, really, Arcanine was legitimately close to being a passable Pokemon. It'll still have issues with Starmie, but if we're trying to fix it, well, rather than make it broken, that's all you need. Anyway, that's about all I have. In spite of all this dumping on Arcanine, across the generations, it did eventually manage to find itself. In GSC, it was stuck languishing in UU before being BL in Advanced before recently being unbanned. And in that tier, Advanced UU, it appears to be a healthy presence. Further down the line, it's towed the line between RU and NU, essentially being too late to succeed in OU, but the real kicker for Arcanine is its VGC success. In VGC 2017, it was effectively a budget Incineroar prior to it getting Intimidate, which was fantastic, and it's currently repeating that success in VGC 2023, because Incineroar's gone! Yes! It's nice to see it doing well, even if it's just a worse Incineroar. So, if you're interested in using Arcanine in RBY lower tiers like some twisted psychopath, go to the RBY Discord in the description. There, you may find some people playing ZU. I have no idea. This was Pokemon Karma, and I'll see you all next time.